The ranch had stood its ground for 2 centuries, weathering storms both natural and human-made long before I ever became its steward, a whispering expanse of rolling hills. It was a peaceful relic of a past that wore its age like a badge of honor. The timbers creaked under the weight of history, each echo a memory of the lives that had passed through its doors. I had long believed in its silent resilience, a belief that comforted me as much as it defined my existence. Life here was a mosaic of quiet moments and subtle joys, the dawn breaking over the dew-kissed fields, the symphony of birds that played to an audience of sunrise. It was a life that thrived on simplicity and the unwavering steadiness of routines passed down through generations. Then came the HOA, a modern contrivance that seemed out of place here, like a crow among the sparrows. It cawed loudly, its presence abrasive and unwelcome. Karen was its face, a woman with a smile as plastic as the gavel she wielded. She embodied a strange, persistent determination to unfurl her own vision over my land. Her first move was as predictable as it was petty. A letter, crisp and formal, arrived with the morning mail. Its paper crackled with a kind of officious authority that sought to intimidate, a litany of contrived violations. My fence was not of regulation height. The barn needed a coat of paint that conformed to their color scheme. The eve of their compliance codes had dawned, and my ranch was their new dawn's first casualty. I read the letter twice, then folded it neatly, slipping it back into its envelope. It joined a pile of forgotten grievances in a drawer that smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. I had old trees to prune, a chicken coop to repair, and a dawn to greet me tomorrow morning just the same. Karen's motives were transparent. She imagined a neat row of identical houses, manicured lawns stretching like green carpets as far as the eye could see. My ranch was an unsightly blot on her blueprint of uniformity, a stubborn old buffalo refusing to heed the cattle driver's whip. But my place was a sanctuary of individuality, a stubborn patch of land that refused to bend to the will of transient fashions. It took more than threats and codes to shake the roots of a place like this. Days turned to weeks, with Karen's tactics escalating like a poorly composed symphony. A knock on the door heralded a surveyor, tape measure in hand, murmurings about boundary lines and easements. I watched him from the porch, sipping coffee from a mug kissed by the morning chill. He left with more questions than answers. Karen's plan momentarily thwarted by a landscape that refused to be tamed by numbers. Her frustration was palpable, a thick tension that hummed in the air. Yet, I remained still, grounded in the knowledge that roots run deep here, deeper than any fear she could sow. Change under such pressure seemed as likely as the mountains bowing to the wind. Karen's parting shot came one evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon. A final letter, terse and demanding, warned that the HOA would escalate its efforts. But the paper was thin, and the ink faded. Words meant to intimidate, lost in the quiet resolve of the land. The ranch stood firm, a testament to a different era. I knew this was but the beginning, a prelude to more serious attempts to unsettle my peace. But I was ready for the fight, ready to stand for the legacy nestled within the hills, for the whispers of those who came before, and for the promise that this old land would not be easily deterred. The air was thick with the kind of quiet expectation that accompanies a brewing storm. Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, had upped her antics to a crescendo that would impress even the most stubborn of power-hungry martyrs. Absurdity had become her weapon, and gossip her trusted ally. The morning sun spilled over the weathered wood of my ranch, casting long shadows that seemed to dance like ghosts of the past. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, surveying the scene. The land had endured centuries. It wouldn't bow to the whims of a bored suburban tyrant. Yet, Karen was determined to stage a battle of attrition. Her tactics, at first laughable, soon became a cascade of petty torments. Citations appeared like unwanted weeds, each one more ludicrous than the last. Grass half a centimeter too high, paint color deemed historically inaccurate by an authority who wouldn't know history if it bit her, a barn owl accused of public nuisance as if the majestic bird cared about HOA regulations. Yet, the most insidious weapon in Karen's growing arsenal was gossip. It slid through the neighborhood like a serpent, leaving discontent and suspicion in its wake. I imagined her, a puppet master pulling invisible strings, setting neighbors against each other. A whispered word here, a knowing look there, and suddenly, the ranch was more than old wood and memories. It was a threat, an aberration in the perfectly manicured monotony she craved. I found myself the subject of curious glances and hushed conversations. Garden clubs and book circles dissected my life with surgical precision, each member eager to contribute to the lore of the misunderstood recluse behind the ranch's gates. It was almost impressive how quickly fiction wove itself into the fabric of reality. Karen's persistence was admirable in a way. A lesser adversary might have been discouraged, but not this one. Her resolve was ironclad, as though she believed herself a modern-day Joan of Arc, destined to burn down my legacy for the greater good of property values. Amidst this chaos, the ranch remained my sanctuary. Its walls had seen too many seasons to be perturbed by passing storms. I took comfort in the creak of the floorboards, the whispered stories carried by the wind through the old oak trees. The land seemed to sense the struggle, offering its quiet strength, a reminder of endurance. And so, I prepared, not with legal briefs or counter-citations, but with patience and quiet resilience. I immersed myself in the rhythm of the land, tending to the horses, nurturing the garden, each act a silent defiance, a testament to roots deeper than any HOA regulation could fathom. Karen might have had her rules, her neighbors, and her gossamer web of influence, but I had time, and time, with its ceaseless, patient churn, was an ally far more formidable than any human meddling. As autumn leaves began their graceful descent, I knew the fight was far from over, yet I felt a sense of calm determination. The storm would pass, as all storms do, leaving my ranch standing, a monument to endurance. In the stillness of the evening, I noticed a figure standing at the edge of my property, a neighbor, caught in the web of Karen's making, yet perhaps curious, perhaps seeking. Our eyes met briefly, an unspoken understanding passing between us. Not all battles are won with might. Some are won with patience. So, I waited. The morning sun crept through my kitchen window, casting a golden hue over the worn wooden floors. It was a typical morning, quiet and serene. But there was an undercurrent of tension thrumming beneath the surface. It was the day everything would change. The HOA had underestimated me. They had mistaken my solitude for weakness, my quiet life for surrender, but they didn't know the resolve that simmered beneath my calm exterior, the fire that had been kindled by their relentless pursuit to take my land. I had spent months documenting every encounter, every veiled threat, and every petty infringement notice they sent my way. Meticulous records were the foundation of my defense. A thick binder sat on the kitchen table, stuffed with photographs, letters, and notes. It was a silent testament to my resilience, a collection of truths that would be impossible to ignore. Each piece of evidence was a brushstroke in the portrait of their harassment, the stack of fines for imaginary violations, the letter suggesting my property devalued the neighborhood, and the absurd accusations of historical inaccuracy all lay within, each document, a stepping stone to my resolve. Their attempts to drown me in bureaucratic absurdity had only served to strengthen my resolve. With each letter, I felt the weight of history behind me, the whispers of the generations who had walked this land before. This ranch was more than timber and nails. It was the heartbeat of my family's legacy. As I flipped through the pages, my mind wandered back to the day I found the original plans for the house tucked away in the attic, yellowed and fragile. They were a testament to the craftsmanship of a bygone era. They were my ace in the hole, proof of the historic significance they so eagerly dismissed. The irony was delicious. I had also prepared for a subtler counter, one that would speak louder than any words. Along the perimeter of my property, I placed small plaques, each detailing a piece of the ranch's rich history. It was my way of reminding the community of what they sought to erase, a gentle nudge towards their own ignorance. The stage was set for the next HOA meeting. I had planned my appearance with care. Knowing that perception was as powerful as the truth itself, I would be unyielding, like the ancient oaks that dotted my land, roots deep, branches wide. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and crimson, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The anticipation was palpable, but it was laced with a quiet determination. I was ready to face them, ready to expose their farce. When I entered the meeting room, the air was thick with expectation. Eyes turned towards me, some curious, others wary. The HOA board sat at the front, a tableau of authority tinged with smugness, but their eyes couldn't meet mine for long. I laid the binder on the table, the thud resonating in the silence. It was time to let the truth speak, time to let history defend itself. The room held its breath as I unveiled my evidence, the undercurrent of disbelief slowly shifting to recognition. The silence was my canvas. Each page turned a brushstroke of truth, and for the first time, their composure cracked. In that room, surrounded by the echoes of my ancestors, I felt the tide shift. The irony was that the very thing they sought to bury would be their undoing. They had tried to scare me into selling my legacy, but I was ready for the fight. As I left the meeting, the cool night air wrapped around me like a comforting embrace. The ranch awaited, steadfast and enduring. I walked up the path knowing that this land, with its whispers and its history, was mine, and no one would take it from me. The morning sun painted the horizon with hues of orange and gold, casting a warm glow over my weathered ranch. Its beams reached across the sprawling fields, touching the ancient oaks and whispering secrets only they could understand. The world felt calm, a deceptive serenity that belied the storm brewing beneath the surface. The Homeowners Association, with its pristine hedges and manicured lawns, had declared war on my sanctuary, a 200-year-old ranch. It stood defiant amidst their uniformity, a relic they wished to erase. I was prepared for their tactics, anticipated the underhanded schemes, yet I stood quietly, waiting, my resolve as old and sturdy as the beams that supported my home. The neighbors began to notice. They saw the letters, the inspections, the pointed looks during community gatherings. My ranch was becoming the talk of the community, the whisper of dissent in a chorus of compliance. Tensions mounted, like a pot on the verge of boiling over. I noticed the Pratt family from down the street pause longer on their morning walks, their eyes lingering on my peeling paint and untrimmed hedges. The Smiths, who lived 3 houses down, no longer waved as they passed by. The air was thick with unspoken words, a tangible unease that clung to the neighborhood like a persistent fog. I remained calm. There was power in silence, in waiting for the right moment to act. I watched as the HOA board members huddled together, casting furtive glances in my direction. They were planning, plotting, but I was ready. Days turned into weeks, and whispers became murmurs. People started asking questions, not to me, but among themselves. Why was the HOA pushing so hard? What was it about my ranch that unsettled them? Curiosity can be a powerful ally, sowing seeds of doubt in the most fertile of minds. I spent my days tending to the ranch, letting the rhythm of the work ground me. There was solace in the mundane tasks, a reminder of the history embedded within these walls. Each creak of the floorboards, each groan of the ancient doors, spoke of resilience and endurance. Then, the turning point came. A letter slid under my door one morning, not from the HOA, but from a neighbor whose name I couldn't recall. It was brief, a simple offering of solidarity. They didn't agree with the HOA's methods, didn't understand the obsession with conformity. It was a crack in the facade, a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The board was relentless, but the tide was shifting. Neighbors began to see the ranch not as a blemish, but as a reminder of what had once been, a piece of history standing resolute against modernity's encroachment. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and charged like the moments before a summer storm. The HOA board members were losing their grip, their control slipping through fingers clenched too tightly. Irony danced in the shadows, unseen but felt, as they realized their attempts to intimidate only fueled a quiet rebellion. And so, I waited, patient, unyielding. The ranch stood firm, a testament to time and tenacity. It was more than just land or a house. It was a symbol of resistance, a reminder that some battles are fought not with words or deeds, but with silent defiance. In the end, I wasn't just fighting for my home, but for the right to be different in a world that demanded sameness. The HOA had tried to scare me into submission, but they underestimated the strength that lies in a heart bound to its roots. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of defiance, I knew this fight was far from over, and I was ready. The sun barely crested the horizon when I rose, the old floorboards creaking under my feet as I moved quietly through the house. Outside, a light mist hung over the fields like nature's soft breath, veiling the land in a gentle, silken shroud. This ranch, with its weathered beams and creaky doors, held stories older than the town itself, stories that would stay if I played my cards right. The HOA Goliath loomed large, a formidable opponent with its polished rules and cold stares. They saw my ranch as an eyesore amidst their manicured excess. They wanted it gone, replaced by something that conformed, that bent to their will. But I had no intention of being their casualty. I was the protector, and my resolve was as unyielding as the ancient oaks standing guard around the property. I had been meticulous, almost surgical, in my response. The legal documents, drafted with precision, lay ready on my desk. They were my hidden arsenal, crafted quietly under the radar. Research had been my weapon, city ordinances and zoning laws my allies. Tucked inside those pages were loopholes and precedents, a legal symphony that sang the ranch's right to stand unchallenged. I remembered the meeting with the lawyer, a man who understood the grace of subtlety and the power of patience. He had glanced over the papers, nodding in approval. His eyes met mine. A silent agreement forged over shared understanding. This wasn't about winning a battle. It was about ensuring the integrity of the land, preserving its untold narratives. The day the HOA letter arrived, it carried a different tone, one less aggressive, more tentative. Perhaps they sensed the storm gathering, the quiet rumble of resistance beneath their feet, or maybe they were hedging their bets, uncertain of what they faced. I savored the irony, the predator, unsure of its prey. In the stillness of the morning, I reflected on how far I had come. This wasn't just about a ranch. It was about belonging, about anchoring oneself in history and roots. The birds sang a gentle melody outside, oblivious to the human drama unfolding. Their world was simple, governed by nature's clock and the rhythm of the seasons. I walked the perimeter of the property, feeling the earth firm beneath my boots. Each step was a reminder of why I fought, of why I refused to back down. This land was more than just dirt and grass. It was a tapestry of heritage, woven with the threads of those who had come before me. As I stood by the old oak, a breeze rustled its leaves, whispering secrets as ancient and enduring as the ground itself. I listened, drawing strength from its resilience. This wasn't an end, it was a beginning, a declaration not just against the HOA, but for every untold story etched in the grain of the wood and the curve of the hills. The ranch would remain, a testament to endurance and quiet defiance. It would stand as a reminder that not all battles are fought with noise and fury. Some are won with quiet strength and unwavering resolve. And in the end, that kind of victory, one born of patience and principle, is the most satisfying of all. The echoes of the dusty courtroom faded as I stepped into the open air, feeling the weight of the recent verdict lift slightly from my shoulders. The sun seemed to shine a little brighter, its warmth a gentle reminder of what this victory meant. I wasn't just preserving land, I was guarding a legacy, cradling the whispers of generations who had walked these fields, their footprints etched in the soil beneath my feet. Karen's intricate web of deceit, her relentless attempts to paint my ranch as an eyesore, had unraveled with the precision of a master seamstress cutting through years of carefully stitched lies. The courtroom had witnessed a mosaic of evidence, meticulously pieced together documents that traced the lineage of my land. Testimonials from neighbors more fed up with her antics than any supposed nuisance my ranch posed. Her empire, built on sand, had crumbled. The drive back was quiet, the hum of the engine. My only companion. Each mile that brought me closer to the ranch was a stitch in a tapestry, mending the rift Karen had tried so hard to create. I could feel the ranch's spirit welcoming me back, whispering tales of endurance, resilience, and the quiet power of standing firm. As I turned onto the gravel path leading home, the sight of the sprawling fields greeted me like old friends. The house, with its weathered wood and timeless charm, stood resolute, a testament to the generations of my family who had nurtured this land. I stepped out of the car, the familiar crunch of gravel underfoot a comforting sound. The neighborhood that Karen had once controlled with an iron fist was slowly rediscovering its voice. Neighbors, once silenced by fear of retribution, were emerging like spring flowers after a long winter, their spirits buoyed by the recent turn of events. They waved as I passed, tentative smiles replacing the wary glances that had become all too common under Karen's reign. It was a small-town revival, a testament to the power of community when liberated from the shackles of intimidation. Karen herself, dethroned and disgraced, was now a ghost of her former self, her influence reduced to whispers in the shadows. I often wondered what drove her, what emptiness she sought to fill by wielding power over others, but those thoughts flitted away as quickly as they came. This battle had never really been about her. It was about the land, about history, about legacy. As I stood on the porch, breathing in the rich scent of earth and grass, I thought of the future. The ranch would continue to stand as it always had, a steadfast beacon of life and memory. The winds that swept across the plains felt different now, lighter, as if they too had shed a burden. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to dream, to imagine the ranch thriving, not just surviving. There was work to be done, of course, but there was time, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose. I felt the gentle hand of history guiding me, steadying my steps as I walked back into the warmth of my home. The weight of the past and the promise of the future intertwined in an enduring embrace.